What's up everyone, Riley here, and welcome back to the latest segment of Overkill Reviews, BangerTV's weekly heavy metal review show. If you haven't already, make sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and check out that dang Patreon. This is probably my last review of 2024, which is wild, and we have new blood in the water today. It's a debut record from a fairly new to the game band, and I feel like that doesn't happen often around here. So this is NECKBREAKKER. Their album is out December 6th, 2024 via Nuclear Blast Records. NECKBREAKKER is a death metal band, and they hail from Denmark. They originally formed in 2020 and were previously known as NECKBREAKKER, but in their mother tongue of Danish. They put out 2 demos under that name, and they recently changed over to the new name this year, swapped into that new branding, if you will. And they are a 5-piece, and they have had the same members since the start. Before I even started listening to the album, I was excited because it always gets me going when I see fresh, youthful faces charging full steam ahead with new bands, with new albums, and quite frankly, new ideas. I don't know about all of them, but their drummer's only 18, which means when they started this band, he would have been 14, and the guy rocks.
We will watch your career with great interest.
He's got blasts for days. He's ridiculously tight within the technicalities that he's executing. And not only that, but for their first full-length record, that means this is a whole new generation for death metal going forward. They have all the harnessed foundations of bands that have come and passed before their time, but now they get to grab that by the balls and spin that any which way they please. And that is what they are doing. So first off, I don't know about you, but my life's been lacking that little something lately. That stanky, assertive, guts and grit kind of metal. That's probably because I'm either really high-level wuss, so that's the music that I've been seeking out. Things have simply just flown under my radar, or there truly has been a dry patch of that dirty, chug-worthy death metal. But either way, we are so back. So when we're talking NECKBREAKKER, I would say they definitely fall into that category of sort of modernized death metal. They've got hardcore incorporations and influences. They have a higher tone of shout and scream within the vocals, and they have down-picked chugs and breakdowns for days. Eons even. For example, track 1 on this album is called Horizon Spikes. The aggression is hard-hitting, and that is just incredible. And then when we get to the 3:10-minute mark, they break it all down and they rip it to shreds. And that in itself is always a positive way to end a track, because we've got a change in pace and we love to see that. But the way that they repeat the breakdown riff again, but the second time around they incorporate it with a really wicked double kick on the drums, and that amps it up tenfold. Of the songs on this album have a breakdown in them. And even though that's not something that's necessarily new to the game, it's always a great way to break up a song and just add more dynamic into the mix. There's something missing within the vocals or within the vocal tracking and mixing, something that's just a little bit hollow. And I'm going to start by saying Christopher is an incredible vocalist. So do not come for me and say that I'm a hater, because that's not simply true. He is not my problem. His vocals sit really comfortably within a bit of a higher range. He plays the narrative more of a hard, shouted, scream that a lot of the time comes out like a gritty yell, especially in the way that he enunciates specific words and specific lyrics.
We will watch your career with great interest.
His overall execution is gate creeper like you wouldn't believe. Put on Purgatory Rites, flick it to the 3-minute mark, and tell me that that isn't Chase Mason's Danish soul sister. It just is. The tone, where he hits it, spots where he chooses to exaggerate and add that zest, that's what it is. However, within the mix, all of the instrumentals on it sound so weighted, so damp, almost wet, and really round. There's such a fixation on harnessing that low end of it all, and the vocals don't have that same humidity. They're not sitting in that same stew and that oppressively deep level. They sound more dry and gritted and kind of like they're sitting up here rather compared to sitting down here. I wish I had a little bridge and I could just like merge the two just a little bit more together. Maybe if they had some more vocal layering tracks consistently all the way through underneath rather than just every now and again, I think it would have done it a more thicker justice. It just would have added more weight to the vocals like everything else has, and it would have carried that really meaty consistency all the way through. I just want more because I think it deserves to have that same thick, juicy surrounding, just like everything else. Nephilim is track 4 on this record, and it's definitely that standout track that tried to be different than the rest of them, and it's got a really spacey, more obscure, more significant opener than every other song on this album. And then, of course, they bounce that build up into that harsh death metal. So it becomes that game of tension and release or complementary contrast, which I completely appreciate. However, the two standalone pieces here, with that one being that more subdued, atmospheric side, and the other being that more ferocious, impactful side, and the way that they merged those two things together didn't really fit, and it ended up feeling like we had two different songs and they didn't fuse, and that made it feel a little bit clunky. They choose a transition riff that is just kind of this nonsensical scale slide between the two bits to split them up and pop into the next, rather than having them flow into one another, which I think if they would have managed to do so, it would have made it smoother and therefore a stronger execution. That's totally opinions based, because I could also see the argument of that really obscure random differentiation riff being something that people like within their own regards because it's different. And side note, they have an additional like standalone drum piece at about the 240-minute mark, and that was just wicked cool. I really dug that. Neat. Production is incredible on this thing. They've completely come out of the gate swinging. The guitars play around with some more old school death metal stylings when it comes to the soloing on this album, and for a debut record, they absolutely killed it, knocked it out of the park. With one release, they seem to have formed their exact identity in who they are and what they want, and sometimes it takes years and years and years for bands to be able to grasp that desired individuality. It's awesome to see that they incorporate so many different influences, and I'm really, really excited to see how they navigate their career going forward.
We will watch your career with great interest.
So with that being said, this is a 4 out of 5 skulls today for me on Overkill Reviews. Shoutouts! Another debut record. This is Germany's doom metal project High Warden, and they are dropping Astral Iron on November 22nd via Dying Victims production. The vocal stylings on this are so Alan Averill from Primordial, and I dig that. I'm in. Second up, I've got Finnish technical death metalers August Moon. These guys formed in the early 90s, and then they split up for a while, and then they got back together in 2014, but they never put out a full-length record. So this is another debut full-length album. They've had an EP come out earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it. It was kind of symphonic, really hooky and fun riffs, but the vocals are a superb low-end growl. So if you want to check that out, it is out December 13th via Personal Records. And then I've got Tethra, and this is their 4th full-length record, Withered Heart Standing, out December 6th. Tethra are a 5-piece death doom project that hail from Italy. It's that kind of death doom if we're talking like Paradise Lost or November's Doom, and they've got some symphonics in there as well. Just good stuff. And that's all I've got. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today, and I will see you next time.